Welcome to the Ori Lifestyle Inclusive Beauty podcast. Today we will be talking about the drug that has taken the world by storm, Ozempic. And with me, I have Dr. Awudu, who's wearing two hats. Firstly, as a medical practitioner, doctor, both in the UK and here in Nigeria, and also the Chief Medical Director of Shalema Aesthetic and Laser Clinic here in Nigeria and in the UK. I also have with me Funmi Akomu, who is a practicing pharmacist in the UK.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
So let's kick off. What does Sharon Osbourne, Elon Musk, and Oprah Winfrey have in common?
They're all mega rich.
They definitely are.
Like I said, I'm not really into tabloids, but I think they're all big and have recently lost weight or something like that.
Okay.
You're right. They've lost weight using Ozempic or variation of Ozempic, which we're going to get into.
Right.
Now, I was really keen to discuss this topic because, of course, inclusive beauty means variations. And we know that loads of people struggle with their weight. And we know, a lot of us know, that Ozempic has been very, very popular for some people. And I think it's getting even more popular. I recently learned that I think by the end of last year, they prescribed 9 million of this drug for people in America alone. And we know that it's becoming even more popular all around the world. For me, I don't want to come to this topic, and this is my personal opinion, and it might differ from yours. I don't want to come to it from a judgmental point of view. I really want us to have a great conversation so that people can be well educated and informed and, you know, make the choices that are right for them.
Yeah.
The key thing for me is it safe? Is it sustainable? And do the people who are taking it have the right support? That is the key for me. So can I go to Dr. Awudu first and maybe just give us a little flavor of what this drug is and how it works?
Okay, thanks for having me again today. It's lovely to be here. So Ozempic, it comes on, that's one of the trade names for a drug called semaglutide. And it belongs to a family of medicines called GLP-1. I'll try not to bore you with the medical jargon. But basically, it's been around for quite a while. We've used it in medicine for managing patients with type 2 diabetes. And especially those who are on the big side and who have not done so well on other modalities of management. So it's been around for quite some time. And then some clever people noticing its effect on the weight had then sort of packaged it into its own space where it's now being licensed. Well, Ozempic in particular isn't, but some other drugs, like they said, some other forms of it, one called Wegovy, is licensed for management of weight on its own.
Wegovy is actually the one that Elon Musk said he used to lose weight.
So that's the same drug being semaglutide, but packaged in different way, in different ones, Ozempic. So Ozempic in its real use is being used off-label for management of the weight loss.
Okay.
Now, the way it works in basically two ways. Primarily, it slows down what we call gastric emptying. So it basically slows down the way food transitions through your body.
Okay.
So when you have a meal, you feel fuller for longer because it slows down the rate at which it's absorbed and then moves down through your body. And secondly, the GLP-1, which is the actual active ingredient in it, tells a part of your brain that I'm full. So usually when you have a meal, your stomach expands and you then secrete certain hormones, this GLP-1 hormone, which then has the ability to go into the brain and tell the brain, hey, I'm full. Send off stuff to stop, to make you feel full. And so that's why one of the things that you experience when you take the medications that you don't feel hungry.
Right.
Because that drug is crossing the brain and saying, I'm full, even though you haven't actually had a meal.
Okay.
Or stretched out your stomach. And that's in summary how it works.
How it works.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, I think Dr. Aldous perfectly explained how the drug works. And the only thing I was going to throw in, and this is probably very controversial, is you made a statement saying, is it safe? And my statement is any drug safe? Fantastic. So if we kind of have that at the back of our mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a really interesting question. Is any drug safe? So that's the same with paracetamol,
absolutely,
Nurofen. But we know we take those because we actually do believe that they're safe. So for me, I don't ever think about that question when I'm about to take a drug. I think more of what is the data telling us about the safety of this drug. It's not a new drug, as you say.
Yeah.
So what do we know about how safe it is if it's been around for so long?
I think you're spot on when you say is any drug safe. Paracetamol, as innocent as it is one of is one medication that's used to commit suicide the most.
Right.
Which is why if you realize in the UK, you can't buy more than a certain amount of paracetamol over the counter. Even if you can get it, they will only sell you a certain amount. Yes. Yeah, so that's paracetamol. And so same can be said for many things. I think like everything medicine, this is pure medicine. And I think, there's such a fad about it. It's gone into the social media space.
Yes.
People are using it wrongly to just cut down some weight for an event. It's gotten to this sort of fad thing that we forget it is pure medicine.
Okay.
And it needs, like everything pure medicine, you need to be guided by professionals.
Okay.
Yeah. Who then say, first and foremost, is this suited to you? Yeah. These drugs were released under very strict research and what's the word I'm looking for? The patient population that were chosen for which they say this drug is licensed to be used were very strict. You have to be a certain weight. You have to have certain other medical conditions.
Yeah.
And they're not without, you have to take that in consideration with each individual, what's suited to them, what medications they may be on that have potential for clashes. All that needs to be assessed.
Absolutely correct.
So you do need to see a professional, be it a doctor, at least a pharmacist, so who can guide you and say, yes, this is suited to you. Go see a professional to then walk you through it. I think that's where the safety thing is.
And I think that's one of the concerns, right? That people can easily be taking these drugs willy-nilly. But before we come to that, one of the reasons why this drug has literally taken the world by storm is because it is effective.
Absolutely.
So unlike other drugs that people have tried in the past, this one is actually delivering on the outcomes that they've said, that it's on the outcome that wasn't intended, but delivering on the outcome regardless.
Yeah.
So people are going to take it.
Yeah.
We've got to be realistic that people are going to take it. My concern is that I do believe that there are groups of people that may need the support. And I don't want to be too purist about it because I've never really struggled with my weight. Since the middle of my 20s, I've eaten well and I've exercised and I've been able to maintain my weight that way. But we know for certain that weight loss now is not just for some people about eating well, moving, and such like. We know that illnesses can affect the amount of weight that people hold. Yeah. We know that hormones can affect the amount of weight that people hold. Things like PCOS and things like that can affect weight. So I find myself struggling with this idea of just move and eat well for everyone.
Yeah.
And if there are a group of people that can get some support whilst also looking at their lifestyle, it's almost like somebody that has hypertension, like me, for example. I eat well, I exercise. I've been doing that since my mid-20s, yet it's not enough to keep my blood pressure at where it needs to be. I still need to take my medicine every day.
You're touching on such a sensitive, but you're spot on. I don't know how else to use the word, but that you are spot on. And there's some more studies and research that's come out to say some people, I'm not saying that for everybody, there are those who unfortunately have let themselves go for whatever reasons. And that's why they put weight loss as a multi-dimensional, there's not one facet to it. Some people gain weight from depression. It can be a sign of depression, for instance, where you then multiple facets to it. But they've actually found that there are studies now being published that show that some people just have the genetic predisposition
to weight gain.
Some people don't have that hormone feedback mechanism. Like I told you, what happens in an average person? You have a meal, your stomach expands, you secrete the GLP-1, they go to the brain to say, hey, I'm full. And then the brain then releases a certain type of hormone that makes you feel I'm satisfied. Some people just don't have that functioning properly. And that's a genetic predisposition. So they just keep eating because they don't have that feedback functioning. The same way you have with other medical conditions, thyroid function, for instance, it can fail where your body feedback in the hypothalamus to then help secrete certain hormones is not functioning well. And we now have research to back that up. So it's not their fault. You see kids who are 7, 8, they're already quite big.
Yeah.
You know?
And I for me, we've known each other for years. We travel together all the time. We do things together. You have a bigger appetite than I do.
Yeah.
Like it's a running joke. Like between
it is
us.
a running joke.
It's a running joke between you have a much bigger appetite than I do. And in my readings, some people genetically have bigger appetites than others.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to people about managing weight sometimes, I'm like, a portion control will not work for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would work for you may be to think about things that are not so calorie dense that you are then adding to your diet, but to portion control, which some people say everybody should portion, just watch your portion. But watching your portion is not going to move. Watching your portion for something like Ayamase, for example, is just a joke, right? Because it's never going to work.
Yeah.
And so what you said completely makes absolute sense, that some people have genetic predispositions to certain things, and they may need a little bit of support.
Yeah.
Where the concern is, for me, is that a lot of people who are not even obese or even tilting the overweight bit will start taking this drug just to fit into a size 10 or because they have an event.
Yeah.
And I think that is my concern for me.
So you've kind of driven straight to one of the points that I was trying to make. It's interesting. I actually didn't know about Wegovy. So my stance was always, well, Ozempic is not licensed for weight loss. So it's interesting to note that it's the same company that manufactures Ozempic and Wegovy. Yeah. Wegovy is the product that has the license for weight loss. And I haven't really done much search into what they did during the trials for Wegovy, but what you definitely can guarantee is that some of that information would have been taken off of Ozempic trials. Correct. Because it's the same company, it's their patent product. So some of the concerns or some of the things that people really need to be thinking about is, what is the demographic that has been included in this? And when Titi mentioned it the other day, it said, oh yeah, the side effects that they didn't know was it came out of a side effect. In the trials of Ozempic, it was actually categorized as a side effect. Weight loss was categorized as a side effect. And
that's interesting.
So, if you look at the trials, it was categorized as that. Somewhere along the line, and I'm a pharmacist, I'm a huge supporter of pharmaceuticals, but I'm also not naive to understand that there is a profit-making aspect to any kind of drug company. So what people need to be thinking about is the driving factors behind some of the drugs and the products that are being put out. The company is not going to shy away from the media frenzy that it's getting because it will push up their sales. At the back of that, however, are individuals. So we need to be actually thinking that the drug is licensed for weight loss in a particular demographic, people who are considered to be clinically overweight, which in itself is a medical condition. So you're treating a disease. You're not trying to get a weight loss activity going. So I say all that to say, I see it more as a point of, we have this thing in prescribing where you say what is first line, what is second line, what is third or fourth line. If somebody hasn't been considered to be clinically overweight, obese, is going through, like Dr. Audu said, some kind of specific medical support and guidance, then that drug perhaps should not be considered as first line. If what we're saying is that people are thinking about it as I used to be a size 10 when I was in my 20s. Now I've had, 3-4 kids and I can't seem to shed the weight.
That's not a reason.
I don't think that should be what you should be thinking of as a first line approach.
Okay, so I heard various messages from what you've just said. The one that I kind of wanted really to clarify is, okay, when it was used in trials for clinical, it couldn't have been just clinically obese people though, because we're talking about people with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, Ozempic is used in type 2 diabetes. Yes. Most of those people do have weight issues. Yeah. And I'll defer to Dr. Audu.
But they may not be clinically obese. They may have weight issues because they're overweight, but not necessarily the definition of clinically.
Obesity is based on BMI.
So it's an old-fashioned, BMI is an old-fashioned method of calculating who needs more. But the BMI is used, it's based on your height and your weight, and then they extrapolate based on age, male or female, to come up with a figure. So, it's very laid out who Ozempic or semaglutide, Wegovy, whichever one we want to name it, is designed for. It's a BMI of 30 and above, which medically is called clinical obesity. Mm-hmm. And you'll be amazed what that looks like in real life. In real life,
a lot of black women complain that they fit into that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or patients, or a BMI of 27 to 30, if you have an extra condition, be it hypertension, hypercholesterol, diabetes. So that is the license for which Ozempic or semaglutide or Wegovy is for. So first and foremost, we have to even establish that. You might feel, perception is a different. You might feel overweight, but are you really clinically overweight? Okay.
What about concerns about how we're in Lagos? Mm-hmm. What about concerns about how it's being used in Lagos? I've heard that we are having beauticians inject people with this drug on a weekly basis.
That's the truth. Unfortunately, I practice here, and that's the truth. In one breath, I get it. If we truly understand, weight thing, it's a problem. The psychology of weight, it can affect you. I've seen it really, really get to people. Absolutely. It's a pandemic, worldwide. Absolutely. So I'm not surprised about this whole explosion. People truly, seeking an extra tool. Yeah. I like to think of this drug as a tool in our armory to try and help people. Unfortunately, like we've rightly highlighted, there are risks to it. And unfortunately, it's an excellent drug so far, but in the wrong hands, in the wrong clientele, it can be fatal. Okay. It needs a clinical supervision. It needs that. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, be it pricing, because I can only assume that the act of going to see a clinician who may tell you you're not suited, or take upon your medical history and say, no, this is not for you. Or, like in my case, I truly try to make the patients, like I said, to me, it's a tool. We've got to first understand what the problem is in your particular case.
Yeah.
There's no point in sticking yourself with a needle and a drug if there's something that you're doing that is just we're not getting anywhere. If we until you knock this habit, even if this will help you temporarily, you and you get that yo-yo quite a lot with a lot of patients who haven't been counseled properly.
Yeah.
That even when they do, they lose some weight, they yo-yo back once they come off it.
Yeah.
And it's quite an expensive
That's
drug.
Interesting because we were trying to establish that yesterday.
So that was
the length of the effect.
That was my second. So we've determined, when we started the podcast, I said I had 3 things I wanted to explore. Is it safe? Is it sustainable was the next one. So is it sustainable? When you come off it, is there a rebound to weight gain?
If you've not been counseled properly, it stays in the body for a certain period of time. If you take it, it's in a week, and even for those who are on the medication, you'll notice that in the first few days it works very well, and towards the end of the week, the appetite and the other habits starts coming back because the drug is wearing out of your system, which is why you take it once a week. So if you haven't, which is why I truly, and I'm hoping this podcast goes viral because we need to educate people. This is not something you go to see that lady or the corner that doing it for 10 naira or 20 naira or 15 naira. I know somebody who can. It really needs, a medical consultation.
Yeah.
Because there's serious risk, pancreatitis.
Cardiac issues.
Cancer of the thyroid. There's stuff you need to take a detailed history on before you go, taking the medication.
You've kind of hit the nail on the head because I think for me, it's a public health issue, maybe not issue, a public health awareness point. And I liked the word you used saying that it's a tool. In actual fact, in my experience, most patients, so I'm going to switch to type 1 diabetic patients who are insulin dependent, actually do not like injecting themselves. When we talk about quality of life, when we talk about lifestyle models and choices, obviously injecting something like insulin is different. It's on a daily basis. But long term, we're actually moving away from the model of injecting something regularly because you find that compliance becomes an issue. Compliance is how consistent an individual is with taking their medication.
Sorry to cut you off there, but I don't feel necessarily that this is almost the same.
No, I was just driving to a point.
But I don't think that the compliance that you will get with injecting yourself for type 1 diabetes can be likened to the compliance that people will get because weight loss, as you rightly said earlier, is so emotional and the outcome is so visible.
I was driving to a different point.
But I really feel that people will stay compliant with injecting themselves because the visible difference.
Oh, no, that's not my experience.
I was just...
Interesting.
People love to eat. Eating is a habit. Eating is a drug. When you eat certain types of food, especially, it stimulates dopamine.
Absolutely. But they don't want to eat and put on weight. And if they're prepared to inject themselves every week, something is telling me that they are prepared to reduce the hit that they get from the feel good of food for the injection.
That's not been the case in my clinic.
Okay.
So much so that now in my clinic, I actually, if you come to any of my clinics, we don't give you the medication. For those who we think are suitable after the consultation, you come every week to the clinic to be injected.
Yes.
Because prior to that, you'd take a consultation, you determine that, yes, you're suitable, and we'll give it to you, we'll show you how to inject. But what we found was people were yo-yoing. They had this, I'm bed this weekend. I want to eat that. No, I'm going to go and so I'm going to miss it.
Yeah.
I'll take again next week. And that's what was happening.
Okay.
So your people are on the medications and they were doing well, then they'll stop doing well. Then they're like, what's going on? And for whatever reason, when you see them 2-3 months, they only come round to you when you want the next pen, when they want the next, like, you've not lost, you've gained, what's going on? And they tell you the thing's still in my fridge.
So that means, so then that means people are taking it and not actually also supporting it with their own lifestyle.
Correct.
And exercise.
Correct.
And that is concerning because for me, I don't see that being sustainable for the rest of your life.
Hence the yo-yo. Hence the yo-yo.
And that is how I really think weight loss should be considered as something that you can sustain for the rest of your life. And if you can't sustain it for the rest of your life, I can't understand the point.
Hence the consultation again. What's driving your weight gain?
Okay, so in Lagos now, if you're saying beauticians can administer it, there are people that are not trustworthy, what is in place to protect people? Because not everybody is well informed.
Wait, Niger, unfortunately, regulations are lacking. And I don't mean that with any disrespect.
Absolutely.
I think they probably do, some things. Maybe it's a matter of priority, from on the government's part.
So people then need to know.
But that's why I said I wish this goes viral.
That they're really
I don't
taking
think it's just a Lagos issue. Regulations can be lacking in any environment. We read a little sort of article on our way here about, cosmetics in the UK. And I think where regulation is lacking is where public health awareness needs to be pushed. It needs to be driven because individuals now have to really, really consider their choices. They have to consider what they are deciding to do. So if I am going to be going to that beautician cannot provide me with the detailed information I need. It is now my responsibility to make sure, because I think what concerns me is that people then start saying, well, the beautician did it, but you're in an environment where regulation is lacking. I could be wrong. I don't know how much they're charging for it here, but the people who are probably going to be able to afford this can afford educating themselves about the drug, its effect. Is it applicable to me? And you made a point earlier on. Are we really, really still wanting to be a society that's just pushing fads at people? We do have also young people who, are exposed to all this information. So, and overweight issues exist within that population as well. People who may not be able to make sound emotional decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
And if they are then having open access to this kind of treatments, there needs to be a drive to make sure that public education around it is important. It's a drug. It's not a supplement. It's not like a beauty product. It is a drug.
I think that's loud and clear. And I think I agree with you. I think that one of the things that I kind of want to end on is my personal view, which is that I do believe that for some groups of people, it can be very, very supportive. You're absolutely right. It can be a tool. Yeah. I also
an excellent tool.
It can be an excellent tool. I also want to kind of stress that obesity in of itself is a risk for people's health.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And even life, as we know.
Yes.
So if we do have a tool that can help people and it can be administered safely and helps them in a sustainable way, then that is great. I think that I had 3 questions that I posed to you. Is it safe? And you've answered both quite
in the right
way. Is any drug safe? Is it sustainable? Well, I think the answer is mixed. It can be if you change your lifestyle as well as take the drug. And I think my last question was, are the people using it well supported? And I think that is mixed. If you do your research and you go to the right place,
correct,
the right clinicians will support you.
Yes.
If you don't, then you are actually at risk. And I think that we probably ought to end by highlighting some of the risks, which is touched on, but not fleshed out. What is the risk to people taking this without due diligence?
Oh, well, on risks, like I said, there are established side effects with this drug. GI side effects, so gastrointestinal is very common. Being things like nausea, vomiting, constipation is a big one. Some people diarrhea. And like I said, there are other things like affecting your gallbladder, pancreatitis being one, although rare, but still there. I've actually had a patient quite recently, which is another thing you find is when a lot of patients unfortunately go to non-medical or non-clinicians. I don't know. I don't know how a lot of people want to jump on the high doses because they want the weight to drop off quickly. But it's designed to be started slowly and titrated up. And it's a very important factor. While the low dose, and again, I understand the country's tough. It's cost. Cost is an issue. For instance, Ozempic is designed to start from 0.25 to 0.5 and then 1 milligram dose. The 0.25, not much weight loss happens at that dose. It's almost purely designed for your body to get used to the drug.
Okay.
And the side effects of the drug.
Okay.
But you're asking people who this pen as we speak, if you're getting it from a licensed place, most places it would be costing in Naira now, we're talking 800K to 1 million Naira
per pen.
Per pen.
Sorry, what does that mean? What how much is it
cost
a pen?
of Ozempic?
That's the dose.
A week?
No, for the month. So it have 4 doses in it.
So that's 800,000 to 1 million
Naira per pen.
Per pen.
Which is for month. 4 treatments.
For 4
shots.
Which is around just over £500.
No, it's about
with your mad exchange rate.
£400 to
about £400 every month. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Even abroad is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
In England, it's a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
So I get it. You want to spend that kind of money for something that's not really going to shift the weight. They want to jump straight to the
absolutely
higher. But I've just seen a patient of mine, my patient, who was on the medium dose, 0.5, which a lot of people, which I'm in some patients, especially those who've tried it before, I'm willing to take the chance of starting them on that dose in my clinic. But again, remember, I'm supporting them. I'm seeing them every week.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And she was on that dose and her side effects were tremendous. Wow. Tremendous. So much so I've had to go visit her at her home.
Right.
Support her through it, give her other medications. Side effect being she was she had a boiled egg and she was throwing up,
wow.
on what we consider a low dose.
Yeah.
Because if you understand that, it goes right up to 2.5 milligrams. Wegovy is 1.7 and 2.5 milligrams per week. And yes, she was on 0.5 and developed massive side effects. Yeah. And so had to manage that, treat her. She's good now. I've seen her again. She's great. But that's a potential.
Yes, absolutely.
I've had a patient who's had really bad biliary colic, so it's gallbladder, really bad spasms, and she was in England. Really nasty one on 0.25. But again, I've seen her every week. And when patients of mine, most of them, I'm at the end of a call, to then support them. So that's even my patients. You can imagine and knowing what to do.
Qualified medical practitioner.
Oh, this is this condition. You're extra sensitive to this.
Yeah.
This medication. I'm watching you. I may have to send you to the ER.
Wow.
In that kind of case.
Wow.
I tried it out 10 years ago when I first started researching it for weight loss personally. And
you tried it personally?
On myself, just to see. I try to do that with a lot of things to see what it feels. So like when I'm speaking to my patients,
can relate.
I'm relating, I'm telling them firsthand. And I didn't have much weight to lose. I was chubby a little bit, but...
You've never been chubby.
And I've got high blood pressure, but... So clinically I did fit. At the time I was 28. My BMI was about 28 and I learned to have, so I clinically fit. But I was trying that 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. And my goodness, I had developed really nasty side effects.
Wow.
On trying it, and I went too fast. I went up I didn't even take the 0.25. I went straight to 0.5 and I tried the 1 milligram just to see, okay, what's the side effect? My God, I was laid out. So it's side effects are real with the drug, even on a low dose. But well managed, when supported, it's good, but fantastic. The side effects are real. They're real. Nausea, burping. If you don't counsel them properly on late night eating, they suffer really bad reflux. And stuff like that. Because again, remember, is slowing down everything. So a meal you had
Absolutely.
at 8 p.m. is still in your tummy at midnight or 10 o'clock. And then you get really bad reflux problems. You're burping, you know.
For me, you know, you hit the nails all on the head. As a pharmacist, you know, and people always find this strange, my first point of call is never a drug. And that's because we work from the negative side back to the positive side. We always work on a risk versus benefit basis. And so if the risk is going to outweigh the benefit in any individual, and we also work on an individual basis, you know, any individual that is sitting in front of you actually will respond to that drug in a completely different way to another individual. So that's what a clinician is thinking about. So for me, it's always risk versus benefit, and every drug has a risk profile. So it's important, like Dr. Audu said, the side effects are real. Some people will say, oh, nausea is okay. I don't mind feeling a bit nauseous. I've suffered from reflux. Worst thing ever. I wouldn't wish it on my enemy. And so some of those side effects actually will then start impacting people's lives.
Absolutely.
And so you're now in a situation where you're trying to get rid of one problem, but you've acquired several more. So that's where it's so, so important to be well informed, to really, I would say, don't go to a beautician to get it.
Absolutely.
Definitely a no-no. And be aware of the cost of it. You know, cost plays a huge role in how well a drug will work, the compliance of the drug. And we're in a society where there is no government support for the cost of medication. So that's something else.
In Nigeria.
In Nigeria.
If you're in Nigeria. If you're in other parts of the world, of course, I think what Fumi said is spot on. Just make sure you are getting medical support for if you're going to go down this road.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Audu, you touched on something about BMI, and it's always been an interesting one for me. BMI amongst ethnic minority Black women in particular, there is how do I put them? There is some school of thought that BMI is old and it doesn't actually categorize Black women well, or when they were devising BMI, we were not in the sample group that was used. My view is that it's an indicator. Correct. There are loads of indicators. It's one indicator. It's not the ditch we want to die on, but you can use it as an indicator. But what's your view?
Yeah, that's spot on. It's an indicator. The whole point of the thing of BMI is about assessing risk. Who's at risk of, initially, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was related to risk of heart diseases and strokes and stuff like that. But you're right. It was done in a population of Caucasian subtype. You know, it didn't account for our varieties in our hips, our body, our bones, body shape, our bone density, our diet, and all that. You know, so over the years, it's less relied on. There are better risk assessment tools, Q risks and Framingham, that we use for assessing who's at risk of cardiac diseases and strokes and all that. But it's still a quick tool, again, to help you indicate, could there be more?
Yeah.
Should I look into it a bit more in your case? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't completely discard it,
Same.
but I wouldn't rely on it as we used to as grail. Oh my God, my BMI is this.
Yeah.
I'm at, no.
Yeah.
Like you're right, someone said, a bodybuilder, if you check them, is muscle mass, but they're just going on weight and height. Your BMI will be considered obese, but you're looking at it, him or her, and they've got a lot of muscles and very lean fat.
Yeah.
So purely an indicator, not to be used as the holy grail for determining any sort of true risks.
Fabulous for me.
What would you like me to say? I
anything
was actually going to say I've had a high BMI before, and there's a psychology to it.
Yes.
You know, so you sit in front of this nurse or whoever, and she's working it, and she's like, "Your BMI is high. You know, you need to drop your weight." I actually started getting a bit interested. You know, when they're establishing the risk for diabetes, they take like waist measurement. I actually don't understand what that means. So
I prefer that indicator. I think that's the better.
In my head, I'm trying to work out the scientific link between my waist and my...
that as an indicator. Because there is a scientific basis for it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is scientific basis for it. So women above, I think maybe 32 or 33 I can't remember. But there's
something called metabolic syndrome X.
Okay.
And that's where that falls into, where the abdominal girth is considered much more important in terms of your risks as compared to just your BMI.
Exactly.
Because
so you can have your BBL and a tiny waist, like, as opposed to I'm actually making a serious point.
Yeah, I agree.
You can have really, especially as a black built woman. Well, some black built women. I'm not built that way, but you can have a really big hips and really flat tummy and be perfectly, but you on the scale.
That's spot on, exactly. So basically what you're saying, and that's exactly what it's saying. Two patients, one with a body type, narrow abdominal girth, big hips, and on the scale says BMI 30. Another patient, somewhat slim, but quite massive tummy, she's at higher risk. Yeah. And a BMI might be 27.
Exactly.
But she's at higher risk of developing cardiac conditions because all the studies have shown that abdominal obesity is associated with higher
so all the Coca-Cola bottle-shaped girls, right on.
Exactly. And I was basically going to go to that BMI is an indicator mostly within the medical sphere. Yeah. But when we come to beauty standards, it's important for us all to remember that no two people are going to be alike, Absolutely. Even twins. And so I think the more we are trying to make ourselves remove and reverse conditioning about body types and how that is linked to whether you're fit, which is the word, or whether you're overweight or whether you're underweight, and whether you should be taking this or doing that. I think for me, my messaging is always, you have to know yourself, understand your body. And yes, beauty is great and we have fads and some work and some don't work. But it's really important that you do what works best for you and what is safe for you as an individual.
Absolutely. And it's also best that you accept your body shape. Yes. As well. We can't all be a size 8 or a size 10 because we're not built to be a size 8 or size 10. I'd love to finish by saying, especially as Africans, I'm African, Nigerian, I would love for us to get back to accepting all shapes. You know, there was a time where the ultimate standard of beauty was that curvy look. It switched to being very thin. I think it's switched back now to the BBLs of this world. And it will continue to switch. We can't control what magazines and beauty standards are being pushed, but we can accept our own beauty and lean into our own beauty. Hi, everyone. As always, at the end of our podcast, we take a hair question from you. So today I have a question. Titi, why is it more expensive to attend to natural hair in Nigeria? I find this question a little bit surprising, and I think that it may be because I'm based outside of Nigeria. But I do get this question a lot around how expensive it is to care for natural hair. I think it really depends to what you're comparing it to. Some people spend a lot of money on a weave or a wig as a one-off, and they don't spend money maintaining it, as opposed to going to the hairdressers or the salon to wash your hair and care for it. I personally, when I used to wear wigs and weaves and braids more regularly, found that I spent more money on hair then than I do now. That's partly because I do my own hair most of the time. So yes, I do invest in good quality products, the Ori Lifestyle products. And outside of that, I rarely go to the salons. I go when I want a treat or if I want a particular treatment, but it's not often. So for me, my hair care is way cheaper than those Brazilian wigs or weaves that I used to buy many years ago. Can it be expensive? I think it can be if you don't adopt taking care of your hair yourself and add that to go into a salon. But in general, is it more expensive than taking care of your weaves or your wigs or your relaxers? I don't think so, but I know many of you will disagree with me on that. There is one point that I think a lot of people make that there is something in it. So traditionally, as Black women, perhaps we've been used to going into the supermarket to pick up a shampoo for $2.99. I don't know the equivalent in Naira, but $2.99, $3.99, really, really low price. Now on the market, we are having products for natural hair that may be retailing for $10.99. Our shampoo, for example, retails for £15. But you have to remember that the shampoo that you used to go into the supermarket to pick up were not necessarily designed for the needs of your own hair. And so Afro-textured hair care products are now being tailored to your hair needs. And sadly, perhaps not sadly, it just means that sometimes products are more expensive because the quality is superior. The brand prioritizes efficacy and performance over just bulk selling and buying of products.